You have heard many stories, but after this story, you may never want to own a doll again. Presenting to you the true story behind the most popular horror legend of Annabelle Doll. In the year 1970, a girl named Donna was given an innocent-looking doll by her mother. Donna was a college student at the time and was living with a roommate named Angie. Donna spent most of her time playing with that doll. Things seemed normal until one day Donna found the doll lying on the sofa in the hall. This was odd, as Donna was certain that she left the doll in her bedroom before going out. When Angie came home, Donna told her the whole incident. From that day forward, they kept a closer look at the doll. However, things got stranger. Over time, they noticed the doll seemed to move on her own. At first, it was really subtle, but within a few weeks, the movement increased, as it started to be seen in an entirely different room each time. Things didn't stop here. Once, Donna woke up in the middle of the night and saw the doll moving its head towards her. Donna got petrified with the way the doll was staring back at her. She took the doll and kept it in the hall before lying down again. Soon the doll's actions got even weirder. When one day Donna and Angie came back from college, they found pieces of parchment paper in the corridor with messages written on it in a childlike handwriting. "Help me." When Donna went near the doll, which was leaning against Angie's door, what she witnessed was even more frightening. There was blood on the doll's face, which seemed to be coming from the doll itself. This incident forced Donna to reach out to a psychic medium in an attempt to contact whatever was within the doll. The medium performed a seance with the girls and told them that the spirit in the doll was a 7-year-old girl named Annabelle Higgins, who died on the property where the girls' apartment was built. Her spirit remained, and when the doll came into the house, the girl latched onto it, and ever since feels safe with them. Through the medium, Annabelle convinced the girls to let her stay with them. Donna and Angie, being nursing students, were sweet and compassionate and agreed to let Annabelle stay with them. And that's when all hell broke loose. Angie's boyfriend Lou, who often stayed in that apartment, wasn't really fond of the doll. He claimed he felt an eerily dark presence around the doll since he first laid eyes on her. After learning about the spirit, he begged both Donna and Angie to throw the doll away, but they didn't listen. One night, while Lou was sleeping in their apartment, he woke up, pinned to the bed in a state of sleep paralysis. Unable to move, he heard a demonic laughter as he glanced at his feet and saw Annabelle in his bed, slowly climbing up his leg as he lay frozen, sliding up his chest to his neck, and closing her stuffed hands around his throat and choking him out. Lou got so terrified that he passed out. The next morning, when he woke up, there was no sign of Annabelle near him. He didn't know if what he felt last night was a dream or actually did happen. That same day, when Angie and Lou were alone in the apartment, they heard a loud banging in Donna's room. They thought a thief broke in, and Lou rushed to Donna's door. He threw open the door, and everything was as it should be, except Annabelle was off the bed and laying on the floor. Suddenly, he heard the same demonic laughter from last night coming from behind him. He spun around, but nobody was there. The room was empty. And then suddenly, Lou was knocked to his knees with an extreme pain in his chest. Angie came in, looked in his shirt, and saw a series of raking claw marks, rough ditches in his flesh that burned. They knew Annabelle had done it. After this incident, Donna and Angie reached out to famous paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren. After performing certain rituals, the Warrens told them that there was a demon attached to the doll. Demons don't possess things, only people. It was clinging to the doll, manipulating it in order to give the impression of a haunting. The target was really Donna's soul. A priest performed an exorcism on the apartment, and the Warrens took possession of the doll. Once the doll was gone, Donna, Angie, and Lou stopped witnessing paranormal activities and lived happily ever thereafter.
The famous paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren were stunned when they saw the Annabelle doll for the first time. The victims affected by the doll, Donna, Angie and Lou, told them about all the incidences that occurred with them. On further investigation, they found out there was an evil spirit residing inside the doll that pretended to be the spirit of a 7-year-old girl, Annabelle Higgins, with the motive of possessing a human body. Ed and Lorraine decided to take the doll with them so that no one else suffers further due to the evil doll. Ed had kept the doll at the back seat of the car, and throughout the ride, they felt a weird sense of discomfort. During their journey, sometimes the car's steering wheel stopped working, and other times the brakes wouldn't apply. There even came a point where their car lost balance. They were both convinced that all these unusual things are happening because of the evil Annabelle. That's when Ed stopped the car and sprinkled holy water on Annabelle. Everything was back to normal, and they reached home safely. Initially, they noticed that Annabelle would move from one room to the other all by itself. Later, these movements increased. One day, Lorraine saw her daughter talking to some little girl while the Annabelle doll was kept on a chair near her. As soon as Lorraine got up, the doll turned her head and stared back at her. As soon as this happened, the room's door shut close. Lorraine ran to the door immediately, but the door was jammed. She started chanting something, and that's how the door finally opened. Lorraine got really scared on finding her daughter lying unconscious. Annabelle was also lying next to her. When her daughter woke up, she said the most amusing thing. She told Lorraine that she was talking to a girl named Annabelle when suddenly she fainted. That night, even Ed had a weird experience. Ed was sleeping in his room when he heard a girl laughing. He followed the sound to the kitchen and found a girl sitting by the fridge. Seeing Ed, the girl quickly hid behind the curtains. He could only see the shadow of the girl through the curtain, and of course, the toe ends of her legs. It was visible to him that she was holding a doll. Ed approached the girl with some holy water in his hand when suddenly he felt someone's hand on his shoulder. Ed screamed and turned only to find Lorraine, who was there to check on him. When Ed looked back at the curtain, the girl had disappeared. When they finally had enough of the evil doll, the Warrens called a priest from the church to perform an exorcism on the doll. But the priest instead mocked the doll and said, "This is just a silly doll. It's not capable of harming anyone." Ed told the priest that he shouldn't have said that, and warned him that Annabelle would take it as an insult. A few hours later, the priest called the Warrens and told them that he just escaped a life-threatening accident. After this particular incident, the Warrens got a special wooden case made for Annabelle, and they placed her in their occult museum. The Warrens had seen a lot of freaky paranormal things, but Annabelle was way scarier than anything the Warrens had ever seen in their lives. Till today, the doll can cause harm to any human that comes in its path. Hence, it will continue to remain locked inside that wooden case forever.
If you like this video, subscribe to Bloody Monday and watch chilling horror stories almost every week.